Bonjour, bienvenue à la conférence de presse Osons la mobilité qui est organisée dans le cadre de la présidence française du Conseil de l'Union européenne.
The press conference
Maria Gabriel,
within the framework of the French presidency is about to start. We'll have Maria Gabriel, European Commissioner in charge of innovation, research, culture, education, and youth. We have Mr. Blanquer, who is the Minister of Education in France, and we will have two testimonies. Mr. Tardy.
Très bien. Mais écoutez, je suis très heureux de pouvoir de nouveau m'exprimer devant vous à la suite de...
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be able to speak here following the European conference. As you've heard, with Maria Gabriel and all of the actors and colleagues from the different member states, we're very happy to open a new cycle in this history of Erasmus, because as was already decided by the European Commission, the Erasmus budget has been doubled, which is historical, but we've also taken on a qualitative dimension because the objective has gone further with the work on a recognition, the question of recognition. We have a budget of 28 million euros, and in that sum, 15% will be for school mobility. And this not just for the vocational school mobility, which we have already envisaged for the vocational high school students, but for all secondary students in general. And the goal also goes hand in hand with the better recognition of these skills and expertise acquired in another European country. So the recognition of the mobility for students in 16 years of age as of next year. And the process is not concluding today, but starting today, because with my colleagues from the Czech Republic and Sweden, we are going to work first to ensure that this recognition advance so that we have a veritable Sorbonne process so as to have systematic recognition of the skills acquired by students in Europe. And so this is truly a new phase opening up for Erasmus so as to always be more efficient and effective.
Louis, si vous voulez témoigner.
Would you like to bear testimony here? Would you like to speak?
Du coup, je suis lycéenne, je suis en seconde.
I'm a secondary school student. Last year I went to Germany. In fact, with the Voltaire program, I left in February and I learned German, which was a very enriching experience. I discovered lots of people and I came back more responsible following this experience. This was extremely enriching, and this has allowed me to enter an international high school, and this allows me to speak German with people every day as they are bilingual. Thank you, Louise. Can you tell us where you're going to school today? I'm at the Honoré Balzac Lycée in Paris. Mr. Daddy, I'd like to speak of your background. I represent a consortium of 5 vocational education establishments. And as the minister said, we are part of the Erasmus program. We use it more and more because we are convinced of the very positive impact on our students, not just in the acquisition of professional skills, but also linguistic. You know, very often our students have a low esteem, a low image of themselves, but the image reflected by the other countries that they go to, etc., truly valorize them, and they need that reinforcement, that recognition, that confidence. And this project, in fact, is something that is well engaged. And this questioning, this calling into question of themselves enables them to truly acquire self-confidence and assurance. A lot of students in vocational education institutions have a certain deficit, and the Erasmus mobility motivates them and leads them to attempt the adventure that is Erasmus. And this, in fact, is a kind of means of then tempting them to come back and go to higher education. And I think that this is really one of the main interests of mobility linked to Erasmus program. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Tardy. Commissioner, thank you for being present today. Would you like to say something here? I would like to thank Minister Blanquer for his presence and for having enabled us to experience this mobility. I think that the testimony that we've heard here today has enabled us to see the benefits for the individual, but also for society. I would like to thank Louise because she presents a very strong message to the students of her generation. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Taldi, as well, because you have shown that this mobility is something that has to be prepared and which has a positive impact afterwards. So we need the teachers for that. Today, we saw that the program is important. Erasmus is not the only program promoting mobility. It is perhaps the star program, but there are many other programs like Discover Europe. You have other programs that can fit within the social program of Europe. You know that what's important today is that we want to have more inclusion. With the doubling of the budget, we can double the opportunities for those who will participate. And I think that it was important to point out that we have to have a flexible action to have longer, shorter mobility proposals. This has to be prepared ahead of time. And all of this is part of Erasmus. It should, in fact, enable that mobility. I stress Erasmus because it is 35 years now that Erasmus has existed for this European mobility. And throughout those 35 years, it has been enriched from kindergarten to the training of adults. We see how important education, vocational training is higher education as well. Everyone can benefit from this program. In addition to that, here we can say that there are 10 million Europeans who are past Erasmus participants. We want to double the figure by 2027. And as Commissioner, I'd like to say that, in fact, the Erasmus Plus program is extremely important for the development of this European education space, which aims at supporting the quality, modernization, and the inclusive nature of the educational and vocational training systems. And we want mobility to be seen as one of the strategic practices of this European space of education. This is being uh, done under the impetus of the French presidency. So here I would launch an appeal for political cooperation. It is through these political cooperation that we can continue to work to remove the obstacles that still exist. We are working to ensure that the beneficiaries of the European programs be able to have their experience recognized, and this also can develop the experience students. So we are working on the future of the European Mobility Program. And you know that we are working with this on with the Council. So 2022 is the European Year for Youth, and I think it's probably the best moment to work in favor of the youth. Mobility is part of the youth pathway, especially this youth which has suffered from the pandemic. We want today to say that soon you will feel the benefits, and mobility is one of the benefits for our youth. So as to, especially as we see them as citizens in a difficult situation where challenges have to be faced, and more than ever, it is the young people who will help us bring about positive changes. And it's important that this generation, which is part of our next generation EU recovery plan, that they figure in this plan. So once again, I would like to thank all of the participants for the message they have shared with us today. Thank you, Commissioner. Would you like to say something in response to what the Commissioner has said, Minister? Are there questions?
Je vois Pauline Bluteau de l'étudiant.
Perhaps Pauline Lulito from the L'Étudiant magazine or others?
De l'agence espagnole EFE.
Oui, bonjour.
Mr. Antonio Torres from the Spanish agency EFE. Thank you very much. I have a question for the Commissioner and the Minister. The Erasmus Plus program is, working even outside of the European Union. So I'd like to know, what is the place of the United Kingdom with regards to this program is in the future, in the coming years? Is the United Kingdom going to come back into the program? Or will the United Kingdom continue to be outside of the program? Maybe I can give an answer. You know that it was a unilateral decision adopted by the UK to not join the Erasmus Plus program. It's something that we regret because we are thinking of this European youth. We remain open and negotiations can take place. Now, within the framework of the new program, it's true that the UK is not participating. You know that the situation is difficult, generally speaking. I would like to stress one point. I'd like to say that on our part, we have done everything that was necessary to ensure that all of the programs that had started in the 2014-2020 program, that they continue until their end. So we have shown proof of openness. We stay open, but it was a unilateral decision by the UK. Pauline Bluteau from L'Étudiant.
Oui, bonjour. Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oui, on vous entend bien.
Yes, we hear you well. Great. I had several questions to ask. The first of them concerns the brakes on mobility. You know, very often students cannot leave because very often their level in foreign languages is not sufficiently good. So before offering them these scholarships and offering them to leave, maybe it would be important to improve the language training systems in France before encouraging them to leave. Well, there's a linguistic aspect, but there's also a psychological issue involved. The testimony by the student here was that they acquired that confidence by opting for mobility. It's a very French question, I think. Maybe we see it in some countries as well, but there's always this inhibition whereby people feel that their language knowledge is weak, so they don't opt for mobility. You know, when we reformed the baccalaureate in France, in fact, a lot of the people lacked confidence, you know, with regards to languages, to the oral tests, examinations. I know this is not an answer, but very often people don't feel strong enough in a language to go. But yes, it's true. We need to improve upstream the language training. In 2017, Macron said that all European students should speak 2 languages. Alex Taylor, who moderated the session today, and the Secretary General, Chantal Manès, have worked to ensure that as a primary school, a foreign language already be mastered. Well, ever since the report was handed in 3 years ago, we have increased by 20% the number of pupils learning a foreign language. So I think that the progress is interesting. We're also developing the European sections in French schools, the bilingual sections, to develop foreign languages in the French educational system. We hope that this will encourage people to opt for mobility for all categories of students. We are also creating the Euroschool label to valorize the schools for Europe. We have 814 secondary schools and higher secondary schools with this label. We're hoping to have 1,500 in 2022. And in this way, we want to increase mobility of students. I think all of this is going to serve as a booster to mobility. And it is true that from the point of view of language mastery and confidence in one's language skills needs to continue to advance. I think we're beginning to see this occur. Thank you, Minister. It would appear that there are no other questions. Thank you for your questions. Another question from Pauline Buteau, l'étudiant. Yes, go ahead. Sorry, I had 2 other questions to ask. There was a mention of the European civil service. I have a difficult understanding this because I know that there's already a mobility offered to volunteers. So how does this change? And what about the study contract for students in the 10th and 11th year of school? So I thought this is something that already existed for vocational training schools. So perhaps I can answer the first question with Maria Gabriel. Here, we want to reinforce the ambition of young people already for Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps by working on a model whereby you would have a European level commitment by young people. Not all countries have this kind of civil service. There's a Franco-Italian one. There's a Franco-German voluntary service. We have a solidarity corps, which is for young people 18 to 30 years of age. We had the testimony of a young Spanish student earlier, and there's always the question of carrying out missions of community interest that can last up to 12 months. So we are targeting 170,000 young Europeans, and this is a considerable number. As you know, in France, we have that civil service, which concerns 600,000 young people between the ages of 16 and 25. And we want to continue to advance on this. We would like to have 225,000 young people in this civil service in France. And we'd like to see some complementarity between that which exists in some European countries and the European Solidarity Corps. As far as your second question was concerned, I think that concerned what that commitment contract entails. Well, you're right. It already exists for students in vocational education schools, and now we want to have it more generally.
Madame la commissaire, si vous voulez ajouter quelque chose.
For the general and technical secondary schools, I think that it's quite clear that by reinforcing the link between European mobility and the civic commitment and engagement for young people is very much linked. What we want to do is encourage what the minister spoke of. We want to try to achieve synergy with the programs that already exist. This is not in existence in all the member states. Obviously, we have the Erasmus program, the European Solidarity Corps, but we have also made a recommendation last week with regards to the mobility of young volunteer workers in the European Union. And today it is up to us to identify the good practices, the good synergy, and we want to have a critical mass in terms of initiatives at the European level if we want to be able to take advantage of this. Thank you.
Une conférence de presse un peu particulière puisque
Thank you very much. This
en
press
distanciel.
conference was a bit special because it's on a remote basis, but it's clear that we will meet with you again at other events of the French presidency of the European Union. Thank you very much. There will be some in Strasbourg as well, and on the 27th of January. Thank you.
Au revoir Maria, à bientôt.